Good morning. I believe it's day 10 today, for 99 days. There's always something to numbers. Or there's something about overseeing the total journey, like we've done 10%. I'm going to wait a few moments to see if anyone wants to join at this early hour, 8 o'clock in the Netherlands. Good morning. Well, as I have to leave as well early, I'm going to get started. Once again, welcome, day 10. This topic we're sharing today has come up a few times over the past week for me. Might be because it's always been a strong topic for me to really get the hang of it and really see what's happening. And it's one of our strongest defense mechanisms. The neediness to be right. Sorry. The neediness to be right and having control. The neediness for control. So all defense mechanism we've talked about so far, or you have recognized by yourself, which I might not have mentioned. Please do share if you find a mechanism within yourself to defend your situation you're in. Please share in the group if I haven't mentioned that one, because it's always interesting to observe yourself. What's really happening when you do that? And all defense mechanisms, how subtle they are, they're always protecting your identified self. So that what you think of yourself, if it's a positive thinking or a negative thinking, doesn't really matter what it is, but that what you think of yourself needs to be defended. Or that's how you see yourself needs to be defended. And to defend something happens when you slightly feel uncomfortable. I would call it unsafe, but that's for someone is a big word. And if I use words like that, they might just think like, well, that's not my case because I never feel unsafe in this world, so I don't have defense mechanisms. But it's not about feeling safe or being threatened by external forces, like you're in a life-threatening situation or someone is attacking you with a conflict. It's much, much more subtle than that. We're actually defending that what we don't want to see for ourselves. That what we don't want to admit to ourselves. And we're also defending that what we're proud of. Because it makes us feel good about ourselves and we want to show that off in the world to others. And again, here it's not about the identity. It's still about the attachment to that aspect of yours. That's what gives you this slight discomfort or this neediness to show up in a way that you feel separated from the other. So you're actually confirming separation again and again and again and again with your defense mechanisms. You could really see it, just visualize it as just a protection wall around you. And funnily enough, if you're going to observe it, it happens most when you're in a situation where you actually feel safe. For example, with a person you live with and you have been a partner with for many years. And in that environment where you actually should be completely able to be vulnerable, you use your defense mechanisms to constantly getting in and out of connection with that person, in and out of connection with yourself. So it takes a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability. And the vulnerability is a very important one. To just don't know something. To just be open and explore and admit that you feel uncomfortable in that moment. And some of these, especially the neediness to be right, it's so subtle. It's like you're convincing someone else of your perspective. I know it better than you know it because I have so much experience in this, or because it's my background, it's my culture. And you're suddenly defending your whole culture. We do it like this. Or that's how things happen over here. And of course, you can also defend yourself by just attacking someone else. It's the same kind of process. So you make the other person part of a whole group, like, oh, you over there in your culture, you're all like this. So this neediness to be right is a form of control of the situation. And it's not like the control of controlling your life, like you want to make sure that every day goes like you expected. But it's the control of that particular situation that is somewhere in its little details uncomfortable for you, or there's a need to confirm yourself. But you're always separating yourself from the other person when you do that. Because you're not approaching it like, well, I know I have a lot of experience in this. And actually, I do know the solution here from my perspective. And I find it a little bit scary to follow your ideas. Because then there's a whole lots of reason that come behind why you need to defend that. So what happens if you let go at the moment? What really happens if you just surrender and open up? and just constantly say, I don't know a thing. Be this child again. Be curious. Young childs, like the age of 3, 4, they don't have opinions to defend themselves. If they feel well. But as soon as they feel threatened, like someone is taking away their toy, already you see the first signs of separation. No, it's my toy. I need to have this from you. So you could actually say, as soon as we start to talk, as soon as we become aware that we can possess something, as soon as we become aware of ourselves, so we possess our identity, we become one with our identity. And with children, they start around the age of 3. The strong sense of identity, we're separating each other. We're separating ourselves from the other. And it makes sense from that perspective to defend yourself. Because otherwise you're constantly attacked by your surroundings. At least, that's what your mind says to you. And this neediness to be right about something, even if you're just preparing food for dinner, and another person is cooking and you know it better how to cook. Because there's a slight loss of control that the food might not be as well as when you make it. And then you might feel discomfort or uncomfortable towards guests who are coming, or whatever the reason is that makes you feel that you have to know it better. But as we saw when we talked about perspectives, you immediately shut off a different perspective to that same situation, even as little and quite irrelevant process of cooking. But I've been a pain in the ass in the kitchen with my ex. I knew how to cook. I knew it better than he because I didn't like his style. Not always, but sometimes. No, actually quite often, to be honest. So then there is a choice, like I don't like that food, the way he makes it, or just accept how it is and open up, and perhaps it might be nice. Or it might open up myself to new ways of looking to food. And of course, you can always say from a very beautiful iMessage, like, it's important for me to change that food. I just use the food as an example, of course, because I know many partners have this issue in the kitchen. But what you're actually frustrated about at that moment is he doesn't acknowledge my quality of cooking, or he doesn't acknowledge my knowledge on this, or he doesn't see me. That's where it all ends up to. He doesn't see me or hear me, or I don't matter. And you might think this is too silly to connect that to such a core fear or insecurity about yourself, like I don't matter, or I don't feel seen, or I don't feel heard by people. And then the hearing, I mean, not being painfully attacked by someone. And it does sound silly if you're looking at the process of preparing a dinner. But it is our wiring to constantly defend that. I would like it if you would ask me how this recipe needs to be prepared, because they acknowledge my perspective or my experience on that. I acknowledge my neediness to control the process, because I want to show up well for our guests, because I don't want my guests not to like the food, etc., etc. So it's a whole string of things that are following up easily. And another way of processing the same situation of preparing food with your partner is just taking over the control. You're defending the same process underneath. I want to be sure it's going to be done right. So let me do everything. And depending on how the roles are developed between partners, you kind of create your own area of expertise. And taking control of that situation all the time, so at least you know that that area is done well. And the neediness to be right is often shown also in working environments. Defending our point of views, our way of working. And it's a form of conflict energy, the neediness to be right. So it's quite a low frequency. And obviously, from that perspective, it's really difficult to see the other person's perspective, even though you believe you think you're constantly seeing the other person's perspective. And I also know many people who are extremely good in just ignoring everything, like becoming indifferent. So they kind of walk away from the situation. And they go into indifference, indifference to that. But that's another way of defending yourself. So perhaps it helps you to just, when you notice yourself doing that, just phrase or first make an analysis of actually what's underneath this. And express what makes you feel uncomfortable. No, you must all be thinking like, wow, life is really all about analysis, analysis, analysis. And especially in the beginning, when you're opening up to these levels of awareness, it is. Because they're unconscious automated patterns. And we've developed these patterns by being young and copying our surroundings. The way we perceive that from that point of view to be the right way. Either to protect ourselves, because we want to feel safe, we wanted to feel loved, we wanted to be seen, and we develop mechanisms to make sure that our parents or the loved ones around us made us feel safe. And And we're also copying patterns because we need ways of living in this world. So we look at our parents or we look at our siblings and we just say, okay, this is apparently how it works. This is how I should do it. And it's sad in science that our brainwaves during this first 7 years of life, from being born to when at the age of 7, our brainwave patterns are at a lower frequency in the sense that they are similar to the waves what you use when you go into hypnosis. And we all know that once someone is in hypnosis, you can tell him or her anything. And they all see it as a truth. They can eat a lemon and think it's a banana. So actually our children and we ourselves were under the influence for 7 years. And that process is obviously necessary because we need to learn. And it's kind of the survival mechanisms. We need to learn how to survive in this life. And from a more positive point of view, we need to learn how to fit in, how life works. The cultural influences, what our values are. And in this same state of hypnosis, it's the same state where you have absolute 100% access to your imaginary way of perceiving things. And that's why children can be so extremely creative when playing, like for instance with sand, and they believe it's a cake. And they present you a cake when they made one out of sand, and they really want you to eat it because for them it is a cake. So it's also a beautiful phase of experimenting and playing with life, and it's actually the same process as we're constantly doing. But we lost our imagination to think outside of the box or to become extremely creative because we immediately put belief systems on it. It should be like this, or it is like this, or I've been taught like this, or I learned it this way, or whatever patterns we have. And until the age of 25, this ability to be creative, really develop your creativity, is still there. But because of our education system and because of our dominant patterning, the way we look at bringing up children, there's only a few percentage left by the age of 25. A few percentages of being really creative. And this lack of creativity is also seen again when we need to be right, because we don't open up to other ideas, to other perspectives, to other ways of looking at things. We get into tunnel visions. And it's really, really important to be very honest here with yourself, because it's so subtle. It really is so subtle. It doesn't come up like a thought like, okay, I want to be right here. I'm going to make my point here. Sometimes it does, but sometimes you already are telling the other person how it is before you know it. And if you don't even express it, you're already thinking it in your mind. Oh, I know it better than he or she. But it's okay, I let it go for now. And there's separation again. We separate ourselves from the others. And we defend what we don't want to feel. And then we say, I'm always so open-minded. But internally, you weren't open-minded at all at that moment. You just choose not to express it. And if I just go within deeper, go into this moment right now, I just have to smile because what I've just said seemed also irrelevant. Because from this now moment, it's completely irrelevant. In this now moment, there's no need for defense mechanisms. It just is. And all is good, all is perfect. So I could literally feel that I was kind of in this state of being right, sharing my perspective on this. And I know it has a purpose because that's what we're here, to share things about how life works. But it's so interesting to notice within myself this difference in energy, this difference in frequency. And it's very subtle, very subtle. And when I use being irrelevant, it's not because of being indifferent, but it's just from this now moment, it honestly is all good. It's perfect if you want to defend yourself. Because I can see the whole picture at once, like, you're just wired like that. That's okay. Soften into it. And I became more and more to believe that this whole analysis, what I've been doing for years, to just self-reflect, 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 was for me coming from a very strong mind. Even though I was also a very sensitive person, but I could never combine the two. But so I developed a very strong mind. And I needed this analysis to just understand every time, oh, this is what I'm doing. But in the end, if you're wired differently, you might still have the same defense mechanisms. You might still have the feeling and neediness to be right. And we all do. So don't just say, I don't do it. We all do. I can guarantee you. But it's from this where I'm now, with this, in this diving deeper into this now moment, I would mostly say, like, just soften in every moment. But in order to do that, you must sense this difference in frequencies. And I honestly was just busy the last 30 minutes in talking about it. That's not the same frequency as being in the now. So again, I want to stress the importance of the practice again. Because if you develop this ability to sense frequencies and changing frequencies within your system, not just in your heart, but within your whole body, but it helps to start in the heart. It helps to open up there. That's the first step. And it's a very important step, but it needs practice. It honestly needs practice because it's so subtle there. And when you are today or tomorrow, after you've watched this video and you want to play with this neediness to be right, it helped me to just pause a second before responding. Is it necessary for me to express my opinion here? Or can I ask a question? And where is my opinion coming from? Is it just objectively arguing about a subject, about economics, or about refugee problem or whatever? Or is in that discussion still a neediness to show up from my identity, from my attached identity? Like I must prove myself or I must defend myself. And another area, what suddenly comes up is where we also have this neediness to be right, is to give other persons advice. Often without asking. Okay. Okay, I have to get going. I'm going to leave it with this. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great day if you've watched this live now, or no, have a great night in this case, because this person's from New York. And I'll see you tomorrow. I think it was about 9, but I don't know, messing up this week, the schedule all the time. So, but I'll check in tomorrow again.